For over 1,000 years, the Byzantine Empire stood as a beacon of power, culture, and resilience. It had withstood countless invasions, political turmoil, and even the fall of its Western Roman counterpart. But on May 29, 1453, it all came crashing down. An empire that had once ruled vast territories and shaped the course of history was wiped off the map in a single day. But how did this happen? Was it doomed from the start? Or were there critical mistakes that sealed its fate? Could the fall of Byzantium have been prevented? Let's uncover the tragic and gripping story behind the fall of one of history's greatest empires. A strong empire needs a strong economy, but Byzantium's finances crumbled long before its walls did. Heavy taxation burdened peasants and merchants, leading to widespread resentment and economic stagnation. At the same time, lavish imperial spending drained the treasury, forcing the government to debase its once powerful gold currency, the solidus, causing inflation and financial instability. War made things worse. The empire lost key agricultural and trade-rich territories to invaders, including Anatolia after the disastrous Battle of Manzikert in 1071. With fewer resources and rising military costs, Byzantium relied heavily on mercenaries, expensive and often disloyal soldiers who drained state funds. Trade, once a Byzantine strength, was dominated by Venice and Genoa, whose economic privileges weakened Constantinople's control over its own commerce. Byzantium, once the center of Mediterranean trade, became dependent on Italian merchants. By the 15th century, the empire was financially crippled. Constantinople was a dying capital, surrounded by enemies, unable to fund a proper defense. The empire wasn't just losing battles, it was bleeding out economically. Military decline and strategic failures. The Byzantine army was once one of the most formidable forces in the world, but by the late Middle Ages, it was a shell of its former self. Repeated military defeats, poor leadership, and a reliance on foreign mercenaries left the empire defenseless against growing threats. One of the most devastating blows came in 1071 at the Battle of Manzikert, where the Byzantines suffered a crushing defeat against the Seljuk Turks. This loss opened the door for Turkish occupation of Anatolia, the empire's economic and military heartland. Without this vital region, Byzantium lost key manpower and tax revenue, weakening its ability to recover. The empire also neglected its once powerful navy. By relying on Italian city-states like Venice and Genoa to protect its waters, Byzantium lost control over its trade routes. This left the empire vulnerable to economic manipulation and military blockades. Another fatal flaw was the empire's defensive strategy. Rather than maintaining strong frontier defenses, later emperors focused solely on protecting Constantinople, allowing enemy forces to gradually swallow Byzantine territory. When the Ottomans finally surrounded the city in 1453, there was no empire left to save it. A divided empire is a weak empire, and Byzantium's rulers spent as much time fighting each other as they did fighting external enemies. Political instability, corruption, and constant civil wars drained the empire's strength and left it vulnerable to foreign invasion. Byzantine politics were notorious for power struggles, assassinations, and betrayals. Emperors were frequently overthrown, often by their own generals or family members. This instability meant that instead of focusing on defending the empire, leaders were obsessed with securing their own power, weakening Byzantium from within. One of the most damaging conflicts was the Civil War of 1341 to 1347 between Emperor John V Palaiologos and John VI Cantacuzene. This internal struggle crippled the empire's economy and military at a time when the Ottomans were rising in power. Instead of uniting against the external threat, Byzantium tore itself apart. The empire also made the fatal mistake of relying on foreign allies to settle internal disputes. Western powers like Venice, Genoa, and Hungary interfered in Byzantine politics, often demanding trade privileges or territory in return for their support. These short-sighted deals further weakened Byzantium's sovereignty and made it dependent on unreliable allies. By the time the Ottomans arrived at Constantinople's gates, Byzantium had already been destroyed from within. If one event sealed Byzantium's fate long before 1453, it was the Fourth Crusade in 1204, a betrayal that the empire never recovered from. Originally, the Crusaders were meant to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim control. However, due to political manipulation by Venetian merchants, the campaign took a drastic turn. Instead of fighting Muslims, the Crusaders attacked and sacked Constantinople, looting its treasures, burning its churches, and massacring its people. The Byzantines were betrayed by fellow Christians. The sack of Constantinople was catastrophic. The city's wealth, gold, relics, and priceless manuscripts, was plundered and taken to the west. The empire itself was dismembered, with the Crusaders establishing the short-lived Latin Empire, 1204 to 1261, while Byzantine nobles fled to form splinter states in Nicaea, Epirus, and Trebizond. Though the Byzantines eventually recaptured Constantinople in 1261, the empire was irreparably weakened. Byzantium never recovered from 1204. Its military was shattered, its economy devastated, and its people divided. By the 15th century, the Byzantine Empire was nothing more than a dying relic of its former self. It controlled little beyond Constantinople, a few scattered towns in Greece, and some Aegean islands. The once mighty empire had become a vassal state of the rising Ottoman Empire, forced to pay tribute to survive. The Ottomans, under Mehmet II, systematically conquered former Byzantine territories, tightening the noose around Constantinople. Desperate for help, the last Byzantine emperors begged for aid from the West, even agreeing to unite the Orthodox and Catholic churches, a move deeply unpopular among the Byzantine people. But Western Europe, preoccupied with its own conflicts, offered little support. In 1453, the Ottomans launched their final assault. The Byzantines, outnumbered and outgunned, fought bravely, but on May 29th, Constantinople fell. With the death of Emperor Constantine XI, the last remnants of the Byzantine Empire were wiped from the map.